and that heat is called free radicals. And those free radicals can actually burn our tissues, cause aging. We have these antioxidants that are defenses against the free radicals. So if you eat things that are burnt up, you're eating oxidized materials. This is very, very poisonous. This will set off your immune system. Now, you can counteract it to a certain degree with the omega-3s, but these are also easily oxidized. In fact, they're even more fragile than the omega-6s. So if you're using omega-3s like a drug to reduce your inflammation, you're playing with fire, essentially, because you're just putting more fragile material in your body. It will actually quicken the aging process. You want to put sturdy things in your body. You don't want to build your house out of cruddy material. You want to build your house out of something very sturdy. So the pro-inflammatory things that we have, it's a defense against foreign invaders, bacteria, viruses, cancer. And the anti-inflammatories, they're basically the defense against our defense. Okay, so we have these pro-inflammatory things we really need these things. We need to defend ourselves against these invaders, and then we need to help defend ourselves against our own defense system. It's like if you had a dog in your home who was an attack dog, that's going to protect you from thieves. But who's going to protect you from the dog? Okay? So you got to be careful. When you play with fire, you can get burned. So what protects us? We have all these systems, our balance system, to help regulate these things. And one of the most important regulators in terms of the short term is our adrenal gland. Now, probably a lot of you heard about adrenal fatigue and adrenal stress and all these things. And these things are all real. Our adrenal glands are very important, and all of our glands and all of our hormones are important for our health. It is a short-term metabolic activator. It responds within seconds to stimulation. Okay, if you, for example, if a big grizzly bear busted down that door, your adrenal glands would be pumping out adrenaline within seconds, and you would feel it. Your heart would start racing, your mouth would get dry, your pupils would dilate. All these effects would occur within seconds because your adrenal gland is responding to an attack, as well as your entire nervous system. So it's under the control of the autonomic nervous system. It's under the control of your pituitary gland. It's under the control of your brain. If there's a stimulation, okay, your adrenal gland can be set off by just a conversation, hearing news, reading something, a thought. Okay, so it's very interconnected. So the adrenal gland also allows the body to respond and compensate for stress. And we have what I like to call like a bank account in there. There's only so much your adrenal glands can handle at any one time. They're located, the adrenal glands, on top of your kidneys. They're very small. You have two of them in general. There's two parts of this gland. There's something called the adrenal cortex, something called the adrenal medulla. And the cortex has what are called adrenal corticoids. This is where your sex hormones come from. This has anti-inflammatory properties, anti-aging properties, cortisol, aldosterone, estradiol, all sorts of hormones come from there. And there's also the adrenal medulla. This is responsible for the adrenaline that comes out. These can save your life. And if I mentioned before, if you went to the emergency department with an allergic reaction, what do we give the patient? We give them either adrenaline or we give them steroids. So we have like a little emergency department right in our bodies. It's called your adrenal gland. Think about that. It's pretty neat, actually. Okay, so something comes in as an invader. Well, if your adrenal glands can't handle what's going on, you actually need extra steroids, for example, or you need extra adrenaline to help you compensate for your inability to handle it yourself. So when you start to develop allergies, to a certain degree, it's a sign that your adrenal glands can't handle what's going on anymore. And then why does that happen? Well, we're going to get into that. So the adrenal glands are connected to your autonomic nervous system. They're controlled, connected to your brain, pituitary gland. Let's just talk about the autonomic nervous system for a few minutes. So we have two branches. Everybody's very familiar with this branch because I just described that branch going off a few seconds ago, or a few minutes ago. The grizzly bear runs through this door. What happens? Your heart rate goes up. Your heart is pounding. You start sweating. Your body temperature rises. All these things happen. It's called the fight or flight response. Most of us have heard that term. Your body's getting ready to either fight the grizzly bear and become his lunch or run away. Okay, that's the fight or flight. The parasympathetic nervous system does the exact opposite. So this is like the gas pedal here, the sympathetic system. The parasympathetic is the brake. This dilates your pupils. This constricts them. Why do you need big pupils when a grizzly bear is around? Well, in case you have to see in the dark if there's a grizzly bear. So that's why your pupils get dilated. Inhibits the flow of saliva, stimulates saliva. Basically, you turn off things in your body that you don't need when you're in the fight or flight response. You're going to turn off your digestive system. You're going to turn off your immune system. You don't need to be digesting your lunch or fighting a cold when you're running from a grizzly bear. Okay, it's an unnecessary function. Heart rate increases, decreases. Dilates your bronchi. Why? Well, you need your lungs open so that you can breathe, so you can run away from the grizzly bear. The parasympathetic does the exact opposite. Now you're starting to see a pattern here. This looks like an allergy here. Oh, constricts bronchi, saliva. Actually, you start to tear here. Increases digestion. Decreases over here with sympathetic. Increases with the parasympathetic. Here, raises your blood sugar. So you have energy to run away. Lowers your blood sugar. Bile. Inhibits bile. Stimulates bile, again, for digestive purposes. Down regulates your immune system. Up regulates immune system. Slows down your bowels. Increases your bowels. You don't need to be going in your pants when you're trying to run away from a grizzly bear. And constricts your bladder. Again, you don't want to be going all over yourself when it's. Think about how elegant this is. That we've been programmed through evolution to survive that minute of terror, and all these things are hardwired into us. The problem is that we're seeing grizzly bears all over the place. You get bad news. You read, whatever. You have an argument with someone. Your brain thinks you're being chased by a grizzly bear. And all of these things get set off. And these things can get set off by other things. So this is just a list of all the different things that happen. If you look over here, you'll see things that sound like allergies, though. Saliva and tear quantity increased. Bronchial constriction. Increase your immune system. And over here you can see histamine activity is actually part of your parasympathetic nervous system. Nasal and pharyngeal secretions, bronchial muscles and glands are activated. So all of these things are actually part of the parasympathetic. Does that mean the parasympathetic system is bad? Well, of course not. But it needs to be balanced. Okay, if you have an imbalance between the sympathetic and parasympathetic, you're going to suffer all sorts of symptoms. And how can we keep that from being out of balance? I'm going to talk about that in a few minutes. So neither one of these is good or bad. They are what they are. And we have this system to help balance things out. A healthy person has high levels of adrenal reserves, handles stress well, and has minimal or no allergy symptoms. Unhealthy person, low adrenal reserves, poor tolerance for stress, many allergy symptoms, and other symptoms as well. Where there's smoke, there's fire. If you're having a lot of symptoms, it means that there's something wrong. You're not a healthy person. You don't want to just ignore these things. The adrenal gland is like a bank account. You can increase your account by making deposits. You can deplete your account by making withdrawals. So what I want to talk about this afternoon is how can we keep from making too many withdrawals, and how can we make deposits so that in case we get attacked or we think we're being attacked, we can just compensate for these things without having to take a drug or run to the emergency room to help us take care of the symptoms that we can't handle just by our own body's balance system. This slide shows what goes on in your adrenal cortex. Now here's cortisone right here. This is the same thing as prednisone essentially. This is what the doctor gives you if you go to the emergency department with, let's say you have a bad allergies, terrible poison ivy, your asthma is out of control, your arthritis is out of control, all these things. When you have terrible inflammation, this is the drug that we use. And our body actually makes it ourselves. It starts here with cholesterol. Then the body takes the cholesterol, turns it into something called pregnenolone, then progesterone, then cortisol, and then your liver turns it into cortisone. So if your body is under a lot of stress, you will actually make a lot of cortisol.